Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian on this Friday morning for Market Rebellion. This is the tape, of course. And I'll tell you what, yesterday, another dislocation kind of a day. Today's another dislocation kind of a day in terms of how we are watching the markets themselves and what's really moving in one direction or the other. I take a look, for instance, yesterday at the Dow. Dow was down about 200, 230 points on the lower end of things. We started to rally back. We had a pretty nice rally. We had a pretty decent recovery by midday. We slipped back a little bit, but we did, sort of in that sort of tight range for a while. Finished the day down about 60 points, so definitely an improvement. Meanwhile, you look over at the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ started off a little bit weak early, started to grind, started to move to the upside, accelerated, had a really nice day, and finished the day up about 72 points. So significantly different with the positive of the NASDAQ, which we are seeing once again today, and some of the negatives that we're seeing in the Dow. And oftentimes in the Dow, recently at least, it's just been one or two different stock names that are pulling dramatically on the Dow itself. Visa being one of those names the other day. We've had Disney, we've had different names, Cisco, other names that have definitely been what's really been pulling on the markets themselves. And so it's not the entire, and that's one of the problems that you get oftentimes with the Dow, with just 30 stocks. Some of the influence that you get there oftentimes gets a little bit of an exaggerated move. So crude still holding right around that 78, little 78.5 area yesterday. We had a volatility index, a little bit more of an expanded move, not 16 to 17, 16 to 18 yesterday. Did finish up the day around 1760. What stood out was again and again and again and again and again, the volumes. 48.2 million contracts trading in the options world. Absolutely extraordinary once again. I mentioned in Friday that so far in November, we've been averaging something north of 45 million. That's getting a little bit more north of 45 million each and every day as we continue to see some of these volumes start to rack up. Apple, 3.9 million contracts yesterday. That's a big number. Nearly 4 million contracts just in one individual name, Apple. NVIDIA, 1.5 million. You look at Tesla, 1.3 million. Lucid, 1.1 million. Give the idea. There's your million option club there in terms of contracts trading. It's been very, very impressive to see. And I'll tell you what, the activity that we are seeing on a day in and day out basis, absolutely extraordinary. I'm still shocked at some of the numbers that we're seeing each and every day. Bitcoin was holding right around that 58,000 level, 10-year. Don't even worry about it. It's just in that same sort of an area that it's been, although loosening up a little bit more and more to the downside with a little bit more pressure. Consumer discretionary yesterday started off not so great or okay, I should say, and then started to move to the upside for the close, finished up about 1.5%. That was a pretty impressive day. Technology moved from being up about 0.5% up all the way up to about 1%, but it was energy, it was financials, it was industrials, materials, all with a little bit of that pulling on the broader markets in some cases, and definitely something that stood out for us yesterday. So some of those movers, obviously earnings are definitely a big influence, but NVIDIA was up 8% yesterday. We had Gap stores up 4.5%, Amazon up 4%. Apple was up nearly 3% yesterday, a pretty big move, new highs once again, and HD had a pretty decent day as well. Then all of a sudden you look on the negative side of things, Cisco earnings, not so great, and all of a sudden we're looking at down 5.5%. Wynn near about a 5% drop to the downside. You look at Wynn and Caesars and Penn Gaming, all with a little bit of pressure. Twitter not trading very well at all, down about 4%. I look over at Peloton, it's just continuing to get just punished to the downside. If you go back and you look at Peloton and you look at where this stock was not too many months ago, and you look at some of those higher levels, boy, it's just extraordinary to see the punishment that it's taken. It's probably at some point a little bit oversold, and that's actually something that I need to look at a little bit closely. But I will say this, we are not necessarily seeing a whole lot of option activity there. Chinese names were under pressure yesterday as well. So you come into today, we've got COVID, unfortunately, being the focal point, never a good thing. And talking about Europe and potential shutdowns and all of that conversation leading into today, definitely getting a little bit of a pressure on the markets. Matter of fact, down about 190 in the pre-market for the Dow. Although you look over at the NASDAQ, and because of what we are seeing in a lot of different areas, not just technology, but also in the semiconductors, also when you look at the EV space, you look at some of the other different areas that can contribute, a nice solid move to the upside in the pre of about 85 points. It did drift a little bit lower, started to come back a little bit. Last I looked, as a matter of fact, NASDAQ was up about 75 points. I look over at the Dow, on the other hand, kind of moving around back and forth, but still down well over 200 points. It was down about 230 points. Here was some of the leadership, and it gives you a little bit of an idea. You've got Bowie, you've got Dow, you've got Chevron, obviously, with oil and some of the concerns that we have right now with oil. Chevron, a little bit of pressure there. American Express, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. You take a look over at the 10-year today, slipping a little bit more closer and closer to 1.5. It's 1.53 right now. Get closer and closer to 1.5. We're getting a little bit of pressure there, and you're seeing an influence that's happening on some of those financials. Crude. Take a look at crude, 76 to 77. Now, you've heard it here on the tape for our last couple of weeks. We talked about this has dried up. The option paper in the energy space has absolutely dried up. For one full year, we were dominated by energy trading in terms of the options in names like Marathon and Occidental, the names that we bring up all the time. We talk about those beta names. We also see it in the XLE, the XOP, and some of the big indexes as well. But a lot of those individual names, particularly those beta names, just every single day, Diamondback. I mean, you name the name and something has been active. Well, that absolutely, almost like a turning a bell, it shut off. And that started about 2-3 weeks ago, and it became an EV story. And we've been talking more and more about seeing option paper in the Lucids of the world, and Tesla and Xpeng and NIO and all those kind of things, and the battery and the lithium. And obviously, I keep tying in this because I think it's very important to always keep in the back of your mind, but Freeport Mac and copper, all of that has started to pick up more and more and more each and every day. Now we've got Rivian, options. So we've got more and more to trade, and there's just a lot of different areas of now a different type of energy, but obviously the EV, the green energy, that's what's got people excited. And all of a sudden we've watched the price of oil, when everybody got so excited over 80, it hit 85, and now it's been pulling back ever since. And it's just each and every day, just stepping just a little bit lower. So we'll see if that continues. We just have not seen the energy names really popping up anything close to like they were. Still seeing it once in a while, a name here or there, but nothing like we were seeing. And you've heard me talk about these beta names each and every day for well over a year in terms of what we've been doing here on the tape. So Intuit, some earnings in Intuit, strong. That stock up about 11%, talking about momentum and movement to the upside. Moderna up about 8% today. Well, probably a lot of that having to do with some of the latest and the news on COVID and so forth, obviously giving a little bit of a boost to that area. Micron up about 4%. I got DocuSign up a little bit, but you look at those beta energy names like I was just mentioning, the Devons, the Marathons, and the Occidentals, Baker Hughes, all a little bit of pressure today, a little bit more pressure. And they've had a little bit of pressure, but they continue to see a little bit more pressure. And when I say beta names, that means they are moving at a clip that are multiples of what the rest of that space is looking like. So Workday was down about 5% early on. That actually made a tremendous turn really rapidly today. Financials, I mentioned that already, but under pressure. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, I look at over at AXP, I look at Visa, all of those names in the red, at least to start off the first hour of the trading session. So you will see me on the halftime report today. It's going to be very interesting, a lot of different topics. We'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. Scott, I believe, is back. I think I was on with Sully when I was on just the other day. But unusual here first, and this is the unusual that you are definitely interested in. So Medtronic, MDT. Now this one hit right out of the gate, very, very rapidly. Stock's trading at about 117. We had a buyer of 10,000 of the January 125 calls. So you're buying a little bit of time, far more time than we've been talking about unusual activity for a while now, going out to January. So it's not only through November and at December, we're getting into the January regular expiration cycle. The 125s, those are going for about $1.12 up to about $1.30. Also, they were selling puts at the same time to the downside. A very, very bullish trade. So they're buying those calls, they're financing it, selling the downside put, the 110 put, getting a little bit of money put into the pocket, having a little bit of risk, obviously, to the downside if things were to fall apart, but with the understanding that if they fall apart, maybe they want to own the stock at those levels. So obviously a very bullish trade. CCL, I do not do this very often. I do not highlight the options on the put side very often. Why? Because of the fact that most of the world is long stock. right? And because of that, when we see call buying, we understand that the call buying is looking for a move to the upside. On put buying, are they buying protection? Maybe. Are they buying it for a variety of other reasons? Absolutely, that could be the possibility. And that we have a much less of an opportunity to really know that answer. But I will tell you this, when I hear about COVID and a little bit of the nervousness going on in Europe, that suddenly looks to me like all of a sudden you look over at airlines, you look over at the cruise ships, you look over at a lot of those things that were starting to open, and maybe there's a little nervousness there. So stock trading about 2040 for CCL, and we're looking at this name, Carnival Cruise. Unusual options definitely stood out with 10,000 of the December 3rd, 19 puts that they're buying here. 10,000 December 3rd, the 19 strike puts. Those are a 33-cent option. They paid as much as 36 cents for those options. If the stock starts to cascade or move to the downside, or some of the nervousness comes up, is it a hedge? Could be. Somebody long stock? Absolutely. It could be a hedge just to stop, give themselves a little bit of a room to the downside where the pains get a lot less. Or is this a trade that's looking maybe for a downside pullback because of what's going on in the latest news on COVID? We have no idea, but I'm just giving you some of the reasons on why we might see a trade like this. I will be on the Halftime Report today. I look forward to seeing you then. Scott and the whole gang, should be a lot of fun. We'll have 2 new unusuals at that time as well. Folks, have a great weekend and have a great day of trading.